My name is Destini I'm Scapi Picani, or Blackfeet, from Browning, Montana. I'm a poet and a filmmaker. I remember being a kid and watching those cartoons. It's like literally almost making me cry. They all had those cartoon war clubs or tomahawks. They were this real kitschy style in the cartoon. And they all had like the same Indian man face with the same style of war bonnet. The Indian people in those cartoons were always stupid, war hungry, and they were always in cartoons. This is in cartoons. They were always worthy of dying. They would get killed. There's the one of Bugs Bunny. He's shooting Indians who are coming at him in this fort setup, and then he has a little tally board on the side and he's singing like 1 little, 2 little, 3 little Indians, shooting again, and like 4 little, 5 little, 6 little Indians, tallying them up as he's doing. And I just remember as a kid just hating that. I just really hated that. The movie Pocahontas came out when I was 14. I just remember like reading articles leading up to it that were talking about how the real story is not the Disney portrayal for sure, but it's also not like the common American idea of what that story is. You know, she was 11 to 13-year-old girl. She never actually had a relationship with John Smith. He wrote down this story. Something like 20 years later, you know, like a weirdly sexual story about this little girl that you just made up. There were like 2 different articles in this paper, but they were written by people who were from her tribe and who kind of knew more of the history and stuff. I think now it's a little more known, but it's definitely not common knowledge. I just was disgusted by the idea of this movie and by the idea of them romanticizing this story. Anyway, we're at Disneyland and my mom is trying to get me to go to the Pocahontas area. They had a special area set up that year. Like, I got into an argument with her. It was like, I'm not going. I don't want to. And that was a big realization moment in my life. It really gets to me when people are like, oh, Pocahontas, and thinking it's a compliment. Oh, can I touch your hair? Like, Pocahontas. Yeah. If people, I can't count the number of times I've been called Pocahontas. It's kind of, you know what it is? It's a real illustration of what racism does. And I'm always trying to tell this to people. It's not about, people try to come up with, oh, you're offended, and like as though being offended is a bad thing, first of all, but they try to reduce it down to like, oh, it's just your feelings or whatnot. But really, racism is about reduction. Like, you're reducing the whole group of people, or even just the individuals within that group. You're reducing them down to something that is not quite human, that can be like easily dealt with. By calling somebody Pocahontas, calling me Pocahontas, is reducing me down to their image of what a Native female is. I mean, I think racism, a lot of times people think of it as an abstract idea. It really affects people's personal lives and personal happiness.
I'm Jason Forges, and I'm a member of the Montana community. I'm the AmeriCorps senior leader, so I help develop, train, and support the other leaders in the state of Montana. So for Martin Luther King Day, I had this activity that I came up with, inequalities through coloring. And the whole idea was you go in the classroom, and we have like different pictures of different leaders besides Martin Luther King that were activists, and we asked the kids, hey, we want you to pick 4 crayons, pick whatever 3 you want. One of them has to be black, and we want you to color the picture as best as you can. I'll pick 5 randomly. I'm like, hey, can you put those 3 crayons away and keep black? One boy, like, he was crying because he was just so pissed and upset that he couldn't use any other color but black. The whole purpose of me doing that activity is showing that inequalities is a feeling. It's not like, oh, okay, I'm this color, so these come with me. It's like, no, feeling unequal is a feeling. And if people can understand that feeling if you're not in that space or you're usually not on the other side of it, then it kind of gives you some insight or maybe a little compassion when it goes to judging other people that you don't know about. I mean, I came to Montana ultimately because I want to be uncomfortable. I am numb to that feeling in certain spaces that I go into. For example, if I go to like a grocery store outside of what it can be in Missoula or even in Montana, like I just feel those stares at me. And I don't know if you ever watched the movie Get Out. So that's like exactly where like I feel like when I see those things. And I remember just seeing it in the movie theaters. And I think I was probably the only black person in the movie theaters or movie theater. And I just seen like the reaction on what was going on. And I was laughing because I'm like, that's exactly how I feel. But then, yeah, in the room, I'm like, oh yeah, no one, like you can get an idea, but it's like, that's like day to day for me. But when it comes to like progression in my life, I just know that's the only way I can progress is by being uncomfortable because it's a situation I've never done before, or yeah, I don't know how to go about that, so that brings discomfort. How I function is like understanding different perspectives and knowing that my perspectives is not always right, and it's always important for me to test those perspectives. So if I have an idea and I'm like, okay, well, I think these people act this type of way, and I create this type of perspective, well then I think it's important for me to go in that space and kind of see if that's actually what's there, or am I just saying that just to say it based off no information that I can really say, oh yeah, that's exactly how these people act, type of thing. Like the training I do is like difficult conversations, and what I always talk about is you have to get to the root of the problem. And for me, I just think that that's something that can be done in a community level. I think this film can open doors or like bring out curiosity in that, but I think that's just the start of it. Ultimately, you're supposed to say, okay, I'm curious now, but now how do I entertain that curiosity, or what am I doing after I watch this video or watch something that I don't know anything about?
I've lived in Missoula for the past 4 years, and the reason I came here was for school. My name's Macdonald, and I'm a filmmaker. I grew up in Browning, Montana. I guess being native Missoula, I think it is a safe space, and I think, you know, relatively good, but I think a lot of Missoula people are, you know, they're very liberal, very open, but I think they don't know they're racist. The stuff they say or like wear or do is very offensive in a lot of ways, but they don't get it because if you try to confront someone, they'd be like, oh, I'm not racist, like I love your culture, I love that, but it's like that's, you know, that's disrespectful. But then I used to just get angry and mad, but I think now it's more like you have to talk to people, you can't just lash out. It just ties into like a whole nother like thing of what people think native people are. Like it's easy to do that, and I'm still working on that. It's so normal for me when I post a picture or something, people are like, what is that, you know? Like if they ask, coming from like a good space, I'll definitely like tell them, talk to them, and of course people are gonna ask questions. For the past like few years, I've been calling people out right when it happens. I had my face painted once and I came back from Browning, and this girl, she's like a friend of mine, but she looks at me and she's just like, got your war paint on, huh? And I looked at her, I was like, it's not, no. You know, she like apologized after, just that initial trying to be funny, but it's like you don't realize how extremely racist that is, and just saying it like that. In order to maybe try and change it, you have to say something. I think people have to really listen, because no one wants to be told that they're racist when they're like so open or woke. You know, it could go in one ear and out the other, but I think a lot of people now are trying to learn, take what you say to in consideration.
People touch my hair on like a daily basis. I think it's such a personal thing. I feel like I don't have the power to say no. I'm Sierra Pannell. I'm a junior here at the University of Montana, and I am studying social work and African American studies. I've always been a pretty extroverted person, very outgoing. That's always been a part of me. In every area, I'm fine with speaking up if I feel like I need to, except for when it comes to race. There's only so many times I can be shut down before I back off completely. It was really hard 4th and 5th grade because we would learn about African American history but not really learn about it. Everybody would do that thing where they kind of would stare at me but try not to stare at me. And that was when I first, realized that I was Black. And I felt so alone in my experiences. And also just being labeled as Black was really hard just because my mom is white. And so I know that I'm mixed. I guess I've always just had a really big identity crisis, not knowing who I am or feeling like I had to be white and not having any Black figures other than my dad in my life. This is so sad, but I used to think, I wish that I wasn't Black. This sucks. I feel like I'm white and I wish that I was white. And that breaks my heart now. I feel like I stand on those shoulders of so many people who died and fought for my rights that I have now, and wanting to have no association with that is so difficult for me to think that I thought. I really wanted to talk about discrimination because I think it's something that, especially in Missoula, people don't think happens here, but it does, and giving awareness to it I think is important.
My name is Lanada Peppers. I am Epsalaga and Tsista. I am from the Whistling Water Clan in eastern Montana. I'm a mother of 6 and a student at the University of Montana. And I'm a writer, filmmaker, and artist. Identity is really important, and the reason why I introduce myself the way that I am is because it opens a doorway to being able to talk about these things with other people. The more that you talk about race, the more sophisticated the language that you have personally is going to become. So when I say that I am Northern Cheyenne or Tsatista and Epsalaga and that this is the place where I come from, it actually opens the door to people that I meet, whether they're Anglo or they're from another tribe or they're from another country, and they want to know more about it and they want to ask me questions about that. And I think that's amazing because it allows me to be able to talk more about this thing that people are afraid to talk about. People would rather not talk about race at all. They don't want to either say the wrong thing or they feel like they're not racist, so this isn't a discussion that they need to be having. It's really important to be discussing race because it allows a more sophisticated viewpoint of what's going on in the world today. We wouldn't have to talk about it, and we wouldn't have to, see color, as some people say. And we need to be discussing these things because there are still people of race fighting for human rights, and it can be taken seriously if there's no dialogue. As an adult, I once tried to rent an apartment and was told that they don't rent to Native Americans because eventually they're just going to move their whole family in with them. This is a product of systematic racism. The reason why I'm so open when people want to talk to me about something like this is because I want my children to be able to see that you can be openly talking about something like this. I want them to be able to have dialogues about race and their feelings about race because they're valid, even if, by seeing me talk about it and seeing me be open about it, they're going to be able to be much more open about it and more sophisticated in their dialogue about it in the future. Having grown up on a border town, there were a lot of people who didn't even realize that in the border town that there were people who were racist against the reservation. Our schools don't get as much money as the other schools surrounding the areas, and so the people there don't get the same kind of education that a town 40 minutes away might get. Reservations experience systematic racism, where there's no infrastructure, where there's no main roads being built and there's no electricity going through and there's no cell phone service and stuff. There's no money going into those areas, and so we don't have businesses going into those areas. So people don't have access to things like basic food and good health care because we're not seeing those kind of things go onto reservations. So I think the first step is really just being aware of your surroundings and knowing that this is a problem everywhere, that this is going on. By not doing anything about it at all, you're allowing it to happen. And there are organizations out there that do confront these kind of issues. I eventually became heavily involved in joining the conversation about race, and it is one of my biggest platforms now as an activist.
My name is Simpson. I'm a local community member here in the great last place of Missoula, Montana. Missoula has the opportunity to welcome everyone. And I say that specifically has an opportunity to welcome because there are many groups here in Missoula that you can find your niche, even if it is a small select group. Now, of course, there are people out there who do not like other groups and other people. But for the most part, the welcoming nature that Missoula, the community, brings is very much prevalent. It is there. And as much as I want the place that I reside, the place that I call home, to be perfect, I know that it's not. And I try to combat that by first looking at myself and making sure that I'm doing the things that I would expect others to do. So I expect myself to make sure that if I'm not making a person or another group feel welcome, then I'm analyzing that and finding out why. When I think about racism, discrimination, first thing I want to share is how I look at myself in those situations. I am 6'5", 250-pound minority here in Missoula that arguably walking around looking like I could go play football on some professional level because of my stature. And discrimination happens so quickly when you're not smiling, you're standing there in close proximity to a smaller person. They look around you, or they do not, or people who don't engage you. And that's a very small, subtle point of discrimination that I experience on a consistent basis. And that's just based on being a minority, being black, and being a larger person. I don't want to be the person pulling a race card all the time. I don't want to be a person who intimidates other people. I don't want to be quick to judgment or stereotype. I want to defy stereotypes. I want to be judged by my actions, and I want to be challenged to be better when my actions are not good. I can't challenge my kids to be everything that I want them to be if I'm not walking that walk right now. For me, being a father, I think, is the greatest opportunity to help make this world, this community, a better place, and the man that I want to be, because I'm not there yet. I am not everything that I'm striving to be. I am not going to judge people on where they're at in their journey. I can't say that I expect everyone else to be as aware as I am right now. I cannot expect people to be, but this is my journey, and I have to own that. And if I can be an example for other people on how I am managing that, that's my first step, is me owning who I am today. And then if I can help other people, I would love to.